Hey everybody, this is Dr. Maples. Today I want to head into the archives and turn back the clocks to look at an important moment in the history of the Red River Gorge rock climbing community. That date is August 31st, 1969, and that's the day that Dieter Britz and Ron Stokely finished up their work on the Ledford Route up at Chimney Top Rock. Now, this is an exciting project because A, it's one of the first known routes, and B, it's the one that we know the most about in terms of its history. In fact, this ended up being written up at some point that summer or fall and ended up being published in a Sierra Club newsletter. So this was also the first nationally known Red River Gorge climbing route. Was it the first one? Well, not necessarily. In fact, I've got a separate video talking about that if you're interested in hearing more about that history, as well as some other candidates for the first climbing route. Also, I'd appreciate if you'd like and subscribe to this channel, and please feel free to share this with your colleagues, because I would love to share all this history that I've learned with you. All right, we got a lot of route discussion happening here, so let's get started. Now, with the Ledford Route, it's actually gone by a couple of different names over the years. It's been called Stokes Route, it's been called Stokes-Ledford Chimney, it was even called Chimney's Chimney in some of the guides. It's all the same route. It's a 180-foot, two-pitch route at Chimney Top Rock that was first ascended officially August 31st, 1969 by Dieter Britz and Ron Stokely. They did start working on this project on June 8th, and at some point they climbed one of the pitches. It's not exactly clear which one, but they did complete one pitch, and then August 31st was when they completed both pitches together. Now, there's some names in here that we have to point out. First off is Stokes. Stokes was probably Bob Stokes. Bob Stokes was another one of the many climbers in the Red River Gorge in 1969. He probably was involved at some point in this climb. Not exactly sure when or where or how, but most certainly would be the Bob Stokes that we're talking, or the Stokes in that name that we're talking about. Bob, if you're hearing this, feel free to put something below in the comments. Would love to hear your perspective on it. Next, this particular route also has the name Ledford attached to it. Who is Ledford? Ledford was not even a climber. Ledford was actually Floyd Ledford. Floyd owns the property connecting Route 715 to Chimney Top. And Dieter and Ron realize that they're going to have to cross his property to get to Chimney Top. So they actually talk to him. They get his permission to cross, which you always should. If you're going to cross private property, make sure you got permission before you go do that to go climbing. And it's really fun, too, because Dieter and Ron, in writing up this story for the Sierra Club, they tell us, well, frankly, something that we would already know is that the summer in Kentucky in 1969 was pretty miserable, like any summer of climbing is even today. It was 90 degrees the day that they were headed out on June 8th to look at this. They encountered all the poison ivy, rhododendron forests, and certainly the copperheads that you still run into even today in the red. In fact, they point out that at the bottom of Chimney Top, the place was just covered in copperheads. And even talking to them many, 52 years later, both of them recounted just how many copperheads they ran into that day. So keep an eye out for those copperheads in the red. Now, it's exciting because in talking about this route, Dieter and Ron just say that it was intimidating. When they cross the Floyd Ledford property, they arrive at this kind of blank wall. They don't really see any obvious features that they could work on. They'd scouted this out from an overlook on 715, but basically as they came closer to it, they just saw there wasn't really anything that they could do. But then they start kind of looping around it. They work around to the other side of it, and as they get farther away from the 715 side, they actually see some areas that they can work on, including a gully that would lead them up to that backside. Now, I'm not going to go into the full description of this route. It is a closed route. For those interested in the historical end of it, it is listed in the 1974 Frank Becker guide. And that is something that's actually available through the EKU archives in a couple of different places if you're interested. Likewise, if you're a researcher interested in the route, feel free to just chat with me and I'd love to talk more about it. But it is a closed route and it cannot be repeated. One of the great things, though, about completing this route is they're able to work through these two different pitches across that summer, document the entire climb, making it really the first climb that we just absolutely know its entire history from day one. With this publication that they end up putting into the Sierra Club, and were later kind enough to email to me that they had in their own records. They ranked this a 5-1 or a 5-2. They also described it as a 5-4, or sorry, an F4 rather, for those of you who might be familiar with the F ranking system. And it's really cool close to the story because as they hike out for their first trip there, Floyd Ledford is actually waiting for them with a cold glass of Kentucky water. Probably the only thing that could have made it sweeter was if it had been one of those cherry flavored ale 8s. Am I right? But that cold glass of water was certainly appreciated on that hot summer day. And Floyd felt that they were the first people to climb this route. So that kind of gives us an early moment of a property owner who might have seen some people, saying if anyone else had tried to climb this route before it. I haven't found anyone who climbed this particular route before them. I will say there was a caving community that was very active in the Red River Gorge that might have been working on those chimneys. It's not necessarily clear, though, they would have done all under 180 feet of this route, which, by the way, 180 feet, that's long for any Red River Gorge route. They just generally don't run that long even today. But there you go. That's the history of this amazing route. Unfortunately, now a closed route, so it cannot be repeated. But I really appreciate Ron and Dieter's help in documenting the history of this route, one of our earliest climbing routes in the Red's history. Got a video on that if you're interested. And also giving us the first glimpse of this nationally known Red River Gorge climbing route from the Sierra Club newsletter in the 1960s or maybe early 70s. We're not really sure when it was published. All right, that is it for this route, and that's it for this moment in history. If there's a particular historical moment or date that you'd like me to talk about in the Red River Gorge's history, put it in the comments below. I'd love to look at doing one of these short videos to talk about that. And again, share this with the climbing community so that others can hear about it, because I love talking about this history, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. All right, keep in touch. Let me know if you need anything. Look forward to talking to you next time. Take care.